Good evening, friends. On behalf of Banking Quest, I, Tilak Gulati, extend you warm welcome. Friends, today we shall be having discussion on two topics. I will be deliberating upon evolution of FEMA, and my friend Mr. Vijay Kumar will be deliberating upon foreign trade policy. So first, let us start discussion on evolution of FEMA. Whenever we say something about evolution, we are required to go back to the history. In 1990, Mr. Yashwant Sinha, as finance minister of the country, had to pledge tons of gold with Union Bank of Switzerland to get foreign currency loan. And immediately next year, general election took place into the country, and Mr. Narasimha Rao became the Prime Minister of India. He chose a non-political person, Dr. Manmohan Singh, as his finance minister. As soon as Dr. Manmohan Singh took the charge of finance minister of India, he also had to pledge tons of gold with Bank of England to get foreign currency loan. Why the position has arisen that India had to pledge tons of physical gold to get foreign currency loan? At that time, India was on the verge of being declared a bankrupt country. Bankruptcy or insolvency is a stage when a debtor is not able to repay his dues to the creditor on time. At that time, India was not having sufficient foreign exchange to repay the amount of loan installment and interest for loan taken from IMF, World Bank, or other countries. So why the position has arisen for India? We have to still go back to history. When India got independence, the dilemma before our political leaders was what type of economic structure to choose from. In capitalism, the wealth of the nation is concentrated in few hands, and they oppress and suppress the general masses. The experience of our political leaders was that of British Raj, and United Kingdom was following the policy of capitalism. Our political leaders ruled out adopting capitalistic form of economic structure. In our vicinity, USSR and China were following the policy of socialistic form of economic structure. In socialism, wealth of the nation is equitably distributed among all its citizens. So our leaders choose the socialistic form of economic structure. In the preamble of our constitution also, it is written, India is a socialistic democratic republic. So friends, in socialism, a country has to adopt certain tenets, certain principles like USSR and China. India also followed the policy of protectionism, import substitution, industrialization, central planning, and state intervention. So at that time, India chose. The experience was that first the foreign companies will come to India to do business like East India Company, and gradually they will start ruling the country. So India chose a world economy that there would not be any competition with the outer world. India would not allow any FII, foreign institutional investment. India would not allow any FDI, foreign direct investment. So whatever goods are required for the citizens of India, that will be produced over here. If something cannot be produced, that will not be imported. India will produce its substitute. So the import substitution industrialization policy was adopted. The main emphasis was not on boosting exports. Emphasis was on curtailing imports. The main focus was not on earning foreign exchange. The focus was on conserving foreign exchange. Like USSR, India also followed the policy of central planning. We used to adopt a 5-year plan. At the beginning of every 5 year, an exhaustive 5-year plan used to be prepared and then used to be got approved by the cabinet, by the parliament. Once the 5-year plan was approved, and for the next 5 years, every economic activity of the country used to be followed as per the 5-year plan. So for any economic activity, to ensure that all activities go as per the 5-year plan, so for any economic activity, a permission was required from the government official. Or we can say a license was required from the government to start any economic activity. So that period was nastily called License Raj. So after independence, economy was required to be rebuilt from the scratches. There was no capital in the hands of the private sector. So government started setting up of public sector undertakings. PSUs were being set up in all sectors: infrastructure sector, telecom sector, power sector, railways. In all sectors, PSUs were being set up. So at that time, one industrialist, Mr. J.R.D. Tata, advised the then Prime Minister that please ensure that these PSUs remain profitable venture. The then Prime Minister, Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru, replied J.R.D. Tata, never talk to me about profit. It's a dirty word. The priority of the government was not on earning profit. The priority of the government was on social welfare of the general masses. So the impact of this protectionism, import substitution industrialization, central planning or state intervention can be summed up into the wording of J.R.D. Tata when he commented on Indian regulatory system in 1969. He said, I cannot decide how much to borrow, what shares to issue, at what price, what wages and bonus to pay, and what dividend to give. I even need the government's permission for the salary I pay to a senior executive. So even then, the economy was moving forward, albeit at a very slow pace. But then, two major incidents happened on the world hemisphere which shook the economic foundation of the country. The first was the disintegration of USSR in 1991. Up to this time, USSR was the major country, rather I should say the only country with whom India was having international trade. When USSR was disintegrated into 15 nations, Russia was the biggest nation. All our international trade got a big hit. The second major incident was Gulf War. When Iraq captured Kuwait and US attacked Iraq, at that time, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, increased the prices of oil manifold. As we all know, India is a net importer of oil. India was already not having enough foreign exchange to import oil. Now the prices of oil were increased manifold. So India could not import oil. Due to non-availability of oil, all our industrial activity came to a grinding halt. So at that time, no country, neither IMF nor World Bank, were willing to give loan to India on easy terms. At that time, India had to approach IMF for a loan of $5 billion under its special window. And IMF also agreed to give loan, but with stringent condition. IMF imposed condition that India would reduce its import tariff. Up to this time, India was following the policy of curtailment of import. To discourage import, India was levying very high import tariff. So IMF said, you reduce your import tariffs at par with the other countries so that companies from the other countries can sell their goods into the Indian market. And the second condition imposed was India should reduce its taxes. Up to at one point of time after independence, the direct tax, income tax, was as high as 94%. If a person was earning 100 rupees or a company was earning profit of 100 rupees, if it had to pay 94 rupees taxes, why a foreign company will come to India and set up its business? So I have said you reduce your taxes at par with the other developed countries so that companies from other countries can come and set up their unit in India. And the third condition was India should allow greater foreign investment. And the fourth condition was India should deregulate its market. Up to this time, all economic activities in the country were highly regulated either by Government of India or by Reserve Bank of India. Even the rate of interest which the banks were paying to their depositors were being set up by Reserve Bank of India. The rate of interest which the bank was charging from their borrowers, it was also being set up by Reserve Bank of India. So I have said you deregulate its market. So under the compulsion of IMF, India had to adopt the policy of economic liberalization from 1991. And at that time, our foreign exchange market was also regulated. The exchange rate, the foreign currency rate, the dollar rate were being decided by Reserve Bank of India. At that time in 90s, I was in the foreign exchange department of my bank. I still remember at that time, Reserve Bank of India had set up the rate of dollar at 12 rupees a dollar. So at that time, supposing at that time, I wanted to go to a foreign trip on tourist visa, I was entitled for 500 US dollars under basic travel quota. First, I was required to approach Reserve Bank of India to get permit. Once I obtained permit, I used to go to a commercial banks to get $500, and commercial banks used to give me these dollars at 12 rupees a dollar. But I knew that I am going out of the country on a world trip. I require at least $2,000. So for the balance amount of $1,500, I used to approach the gray market and purchase dollar at 20 rupees a dollar. Dollar was easily available in the gray market. So in the regulated market set up by Reserve Bank of India, in the regulated market, dollar rate was 12 rupees a dollar. In the gray market, dollar rate was 20 rupees a dollar. What was the impact of this gray market? Because gray market was prevalent in India. So the impact was that our NRIs, non-resident Indians, they were withholding their funds out of the country. They were not remitting the funds to India, because if they remitted funds to India through banking channel, they would get only 12 rupees a dollar. Either they were withholding their funds out of the country, or if at all they were required to remit funds, they were remitting funds through Hawala channel, or whenever they were coming to India, they were hiding foreign currency in their pocket and selling that foreign currency in the gray market. So when India started deregulating this foreign exchange market, RBI said that henceforth RBI would not decide the rate of dollar. So RBI left on the market forces demand and supply. That rate of dollar would be fixed by demand and supply, and the commercial banks would be the market makers. When this market was deregulated, demand and supply forces started setting up the rate of dollar. The rate of dollar did not remain at 12 rupees a dollar. It neither remained at 20 rupees a dollar. It fixed somewhere at 18 rupees a dollar. When through banking channel, dollar was being sold and purchased at 18 rupees a dollar. So all our NRIs started remitting funds to India, because keeping funds in other countries, in developed countries, is totally a non-remunerative business, because banks in developed countries do not pay any interest. So they started remitting funds to India. So funds were pouring into India. Foreign exchange reserves of India started mounting up. So India, which was facing the problem of scarcity of foreign exchange, all of its students started facing the problem of plenty of foreign exchange. India, which was earlier conserving foreign exchange, now it was required that they should manage the foreign exchange. So India had to, now earlier, all our foreign exchange transactions were being regulated under Foreign Exchange Regulation Act. Now the need arisen that not to regulate the foreign exchange transaction, but to manage the foreign exchange transaction. To manage this foreign exchange transaction, a new act was passed, that was Foreign Exchange Management Act in 1999. So a Foreign Exchange Management Act of 1999, FEMA, is an act of Parliament of India to consolidate and amend the law relating to foreign exchange with the objective of facilitating external trade and payments, and for promoting the orderly development and maintenance of foreign exchange market in India. It replaced the Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, FERA 1973. Now two acts were there, FERA and FEMA. FERA was repealed, FEMA was implemented. So first let us try to understand what was the difference between FERA and FEMA. FERA is basically a disabling act. It used to disable the banks. It used to say, you can't do this thing, you cannot do that thing. whereas FEMA is an enabling act. It allows that you can do this thing, you can do this act. And the objective of FARA was conservation of foreign exchange, whereas the objective of FEMA is management of foreign exchange. FARA dealt with the problem of scarcity of foreign exchange. FEMA deals with the problem of plenty of foreign exchange. Offense under FARA was criminal and punishable, and the burden of proof was on the accused. Offense under FEMA is civil and compoundable, and the burden of proof is on the prosecution. In FARA, current account and capital account terms were not defined, but here in FEMA, current account and capital account were clearly defined. We had already yesterday discussed, Mr. Hargovind said, they were already discussed in detail the current account and capital account transaction. So friends, so to give a synopsis of FEMA, Foreign Exchange Management Act 1999 was implemented with effect from 1st June 2000, replacing previous Foreign Exchange Regulation Act FARA. It consolidates and amends law relating to foreign exchange. It facilitates external trade and payments. It promotes the orderly development and maintenance of foreign exchange market, and it extends to whole of India. It also applies to all branches, offices outside India also, owned and controlled by persons resident in India. There are total of 49 sections in this act. The regulatory requirements of FEMA are applicable on resident as well as resident and non-resident individuals, as well as resident and non-resident entities. So friends, so far as we have been discussing foreign exchange, but what do we mean by foreign exchange? What do we understand by foreign exchange? Foreign exchange means foreign currency. It also includes deposits, credits, and balance payable in any foreign currency. It also includes drafts, traveler checks, letters of credit, and bill of exchange expressed or drawn in Indian currency but payable in foreign currency. Same way, drafts, traveler checks, letters of credit, bill of exchange drawn by bank, institution, persons outside India but payable in Indian rupee. In other words, foreign exchange stock include foreign currency assets, balances kept abroad, instruments payable in foreign currency, and instruments drawn abroad but payable in Indian currency. So friends, there are certain important sections. Though during the course of our program, time and again we shall be discussing various sections of FEMA. Just to give you an overview of FEMA. Section 2 of FEMA gives definition of all activities. And Section 3 of FEMA says no entity other than one authorized by Reserve Bank of India can handle foreign exchange business. Section 5 of FEMA deals with current account transactions. Section 6 deals with capital account transactions. Section 10 of FEMA says RBI may, on an application made to it, authorize any person to be known as authorized person to deal in foreign exchange or in foreign securities as an authorized dealer, money changer, offshore banking unit, or in any other manner as it deems fit. Friends, Section 11 says of FEMA says that RBI is authorized to issue directions, call for information, and impose penalties. Section 12 of FEMA empowers Reserve Bank of India to inspect the authorized dealers. Section 13 deals with contravention as civil offense and to impose penalty. Section 36 of FEMA provides for establishment of Directorate of Enforcement. Section 46 empowers central bank to frame rules, and Section 47 empowers Reserve Bank of India to make regulations to carry out the provisions of this enactment. So friends, there are certain sections of FEMA which affect the trade. These are Section 7 of FEMA and Section 8 of FEMA. Section 7 deals with export of goods and services. So it says that every exporter of goods shall furnish to Reserve Bank of India or such other authority a declaration in such form and in such manner as may be specified. What should the exporter declare? He should declare containing true and correct material, particularly including amount representing the full export value. Means whatever material he is exporting and what is the amount of that material, that exporter has to declare it. And Section 8 of FEMA, once the export has been made, now the remittance is required to be, it has to be realized. So Section 8 deals with realization of export proceeds. It says, where any amount of foreign exchange is due or has accrued to any person resident in India, such person shall take all possible steps to realize and repatriate to India such foreign exchange within such period and in such manner as may be specified by Reserve Bank of India. It says that once exporter has made the export, it is his duty to realize the export proceeds. How he will realize, in what manner he will realize, within how much period he will realize, all those things are being specified by Reserve Bank of India. So friends, so Section 11. So Reserve Bank of India has got certain mandate. What mandates are there? That Reserve Bank may by regulation, prohibit, restrict or regulate the following transaction between resident and non-resident entities or persons. Means RBI can prohibit, restrict or regulate. What it can regulate? Transfer and issue of securities, borrowing and lending in foreign exchange and Indian rupee, deposits and investment, export and import, holding of currency, transfer, acquisition of immovable property, guarantee in respect of any debt, obligation or other liabilities. Means all fund-based as well as non-fund-based foreign exchange transactions can be prohibited, restricted or regulated by Reserve Bank of India. RBI is empowered to notify regulations to give effect the FEMA through APDIR circulars. You go to RBI website, you will find APDIR circulars. RBI will consolidate instructions of underlying circulars and notifications through master direction. If you go to RBI website, you will find master direction, that is a consolidation of circulars and notification, and submission of various transaction report to RBI. RBI can call for various transaction report, various reports. Our return is one of the main report which RBI seeks from the authorized dealers. So friends, so Section 10 authorizes RBI that to give to appoint any authorized dealer. So our Reserve Bank of India authorize any person to be known as authorized person to deal in foreign exchange as authorized dealers to be categorized as authorized dealer category 1. If these are basically commercial banks dealings in foreign exchange. Authorized dealers category 2, they are cooperative banks and regional rural banks. Authorized dealers category 3, selected financial and other institutions dealing in foreign exchange like NMTC, State Trading Corporation. Then there are certain authorized money changers also. There are full-fledged money changers, there are restricted money changers. So there are certain duties, and powers given to authorized person. Duties of authorized persons are that they will comply with Reserve Bank of India direction and they will not engage in any unauthorized transaction, and they will ensure compliance of FEMA provisions, and they will produce the books and accounts whenever RBI requires for inspection, there are certain powers given to these authorized persons that they will deal or transfer any foreign exchange. They can receive payment by order. They can open NRI account. They can sell, purchase for any current account or permissible capital account transaction. So friends, to conclude, FEMA is a statutory basis for exchange control. Violation of FEMA is a civil offense. FEMA permits only authorized person to deal in foreign exchange, authorized dealers, money changers, offshore banking units, or any other person authorized by Reserve Bank of India. So RBI strongly enforces foreign exchange laws effectively. So friends, thank you. So I have discussed for evolution of FEMA.